It is not illness. A sick body can still hold a peaceful heart. I have seen this with my own eyes. I have sat beside men and women whose bodies were failing, whose hands no longer worked the way they once did, whose legs could no longer carry them up the hill they used to climb every morning, and yet their eyes were calm. Their breathing was easy. They were not afraid of what was coming. They were ready. So it is not illness. It is not loneliness either. I know what you might be thinking. You might be thinking, an empty house. Children who moved away, a partner lost too soon. And yes, loneliness is real. It is its own kind of pain. But I have also seen people surrounded by family, grandchildren filling every room, voices and laughter everywhere, and still they carried something heavy behind their eyes that no amount of company could reach. It is not loneliness, and it is not regret, not the kind people usually mean when they say that word, not the regret of things done wrong. Mistakes can be forgiven, by others eventually, and by yourself if you are willing to do the quiet work of it. The elders always said, a wrong action that is faced honestly loses most of its weight. The wound closes, the spirit moves on. No, what the elders spoke about is something different from all of these, something quieter, something that does not announce itself, something that does not arrive at your door one dramatic afternoon and say, here I am, pay attention to me. It arrives slowly, one small decision at a time, one small silence at a time, one small surrender at a time. And most people never even realize it is happening until the years have already passed and they find themselves standing at the edge of their life, looking back, feeling a heaviness in their chest that they cannot quite name. We are going to name it today. But first, let me take you through what it is not, because the elders always taught this way. They said, before you can recognize the truth, you must be willing to look honestly at everything you thought was true and see why it falls short. So let us do that together. The first thing most people point to is money. They say, if I had worked harder when I was young, if I had saved more, invested better, built something that lasted, maybe then I would feel at peace. Maybe then I would feel like my life amounted to something. And I understand why people think this. We live in a world that measures a life by what it accumulates, the house, the car, the titles, the account balance at the end. But the elders had seen wealthy men die with clenched fists. I mean that literally. There is a kind of dying where the body holds on, not from love, not from unfinished goodness, but from fear. From the feeling that everything you spent your life gathering is about to be taken from you. And that kind of dying is not peaceful. It is not dignified. It is the opposite of what any of us hope for. And the elders had also seen men with almost nothing, men who owned little more than the clothes on their back and the knowledge in their minds, die with open hands, resting, complete, as though they had given everything they came here to give and were simply returning to where they came from. So the elders knew, the weight on the heart at the end of a life is not made of dollars. It is not made of anything you can count. Money can make life easier. That is true, and the elders never pretended otherwise. But it cannot make a life feel meaningful, and it cannot make a life feel like yours. The second thing people point to is health, the body that slowed down, the diagnosis that changed everything. The years spent managing pain, managing limitation, managing the grief of losing the physical self you once were. And again, this is real. Physical suffering is real. I do not dismiss it. But the elders had watched people spend their strongest years, their bodies at their most capable, their energy at its peak, chasing things that never satisfied them, running fast in the wrong direction. And they arrived at old age feeling like they had been robbed of something, even though the thief was never illness. The thief was something else entirely. A strong body cannot save you from a life that was never really yours. The third thing people point to is the relationships that did not work out, the marriage that ended badly, the children who drifted away, the friendships that faded without explanation, the feeling that you were never truly known by anyone, that even the people closest to you only knew the version of you that you allowed them to see. And this one is closer to the truth. This one is warmer, but it is still not the root. Because here is what the elders observed. Many people lost relationships not because they were unlucky, not because they chose badly, but because they never fully showed up as themselves. They were so busy being who they thought they were supposed to be, good son, responsible provider, steady partner, capable professional, that the real person underneath was never quite present in the room, and so the connection never went as deep as it could have. And later they grieved not just the loss of the person, but the loss of a closeness that was always possible and never quite reached. But that is still a symptom, not the root. So if it is not money, and it is not health, and it is not even loneliness or broken relationships in themselves, then what is it? The real reason is something you choose, often without knowing you are choosing it. Every single day, in small ways that seem harmless at the time. The elders called it living the life that others expected of you, instead of the life that your own soul was asking for. Read that again slowly. Let it settle. Living the life that others expected, instead of the life your soul was asking for. Think about the decisions you have made over the course of your years, not the big dramatic ones. Those are easy to examine. Think about the quiet ones, the ones you made without fanfare, without ceremony, without even quite realizing you were making a choice at all. The career you stepped into because it was practical, because it made sense, because a father worked in that field, or because a mother said, that will give you security, and security is what matters. The dream you folded up and put away in a drawer somewhere around the age of 23, because someone whose opinion mattered to you said, that is not realistic. That is not what serious people do. That is not who we are. The version of yourself you stopped expressing, the part that was too loud, too sensitive, too strange, too much, because you learned early that when you were fully yourself, people became uncomfortable, and their discomfort felt like danger. So you learned to be smaller, quieter, more manageable. You did not do this because you were weak. The elders were very clear about that. They never blamed the people who walked this path. They understood why it happened. We are social creatures. We are wired to belong. We are wired to read the room, to sense what others need from us, to shape ourselves accordingly. In many ways, this capacity kept our ancestors alive. The person who fit in with their community survived. The person who wandered too far from the group did not. But somewhere along the way, what was once a survival skill became a life sentence. And instead of asking, what do I actually want? What does my soul actually need? What did I come here to express? People kept asking a different question, a smaller question, a question that sounds responsible and mature, but slowly empties a life from the inside. They kept asking, what do people expect of me? The elders had a way of describing this that I have never forgotten. They said it was like wearing a mask for so long that you forgot what your face looked like underneath. You put the mask on young, maybe very young, maybe so young that you cannot even remember a time when you were not wearing it. The mask of the responsible one, the mask of the strong one, the mask of the one who does not need much, who does not complain, who handles things. And for years, decades sometimes, the mask works. People respond well to it. You get approval. You get stability. You get the things the world told you to want. And it feels, for a while, like enough. But somewhere in the middle of a life, often around the age the elders spoke of most, somewhere between 50 and 70, the mask starts to feel heavy in a way it never did before. You start waking up at 3 in the morning with a feeling you cannot name. Not anxiety exactly. Not sadness exactly. Something more like a question that has been waiting patiently at the back of your mind for 30 years and is finally refusing to wait any longer. The question sounds something like, is this it? Not in a desperate way, not in a way that means life has been worthless, just honestly. Is this who I actually am? Is this what I actually wanted? Did I choose this, or did I just follow the path that was laid in front of me and call it choosing? And for many people, the honest answer is, I do not know. And that not knowing is the source of the heaviness, not the money they did not earn, not the health they did not keep, not even the people they lost. The heaviness comes from the growing suspicion that somewhere between birth and now, somewhere between the child who had a natural sense of what they loved, what they were drawn to, what made them feel alive, and the adult who learned to manage, to perform, to produce, something essential got left behind. The elders called this the forgotten self, not destroyed, not dead, just forgotten, set aside for so long that you stopped hearing its voice clearly, but it never stopped speaking. It just got quieter and quieter as the years went on, until it could only reach you in the small hours of the morning, or in the sudden and unexpected grief that arrives sometimes when you are watching your grandchildren play, or standing in a garden, or driving alone on a long road with the radio off. Before we move into the next part of this teaching, I want to share something with you. Many of the reflections I have spent years preserving, about aging, about inner peace, about silence, and about the lessons that modern times have forgotten, have been gathered into a book called The Last Teachings. It is a simple conversation, written the same way an elder would speak to someone sitting beside them. If you want to go deeper into these teachings, You will find the link in the first comment. There was a teaching the elders returned to often, about a man who spent 40 years building a business. He was good at it. That part was true. He had a talent for it and he worked hard, and the business grew, and people respected him, and his family was comfortable, and by every measure the world offered, he had succeeded. But when he was old, when the business had been handed off and the days were quiet and there was finally time to simply be, he found that he did not know how to be. He had spent so long doing that the doing was gone, and without it he did not know who he was. He told the elder, "I feel like a man who spent his whole life building a house, and when it was finally finished, realized he did not actually want to live in it." The elder sat with him for a long time in silence, and then he said, "The house was real, the work was real, the love you provided through that work was real. Do not let grief for the unlived life erase what the lived life actually gave. But," and the elder said this gently, not as an accusation, "the question worth sitting with now is not what you built. It is what you were afraid to build, what you were afraid to even try." And the man was quiet for a long time, and then he said, "I always wanted to paint since I was a boy, but I was told it was not practical, and I believed them." And the elder said, "Then paint now. You still have time. The fear was never that you could not paint. The fear was that if you painted and it did not make money, and it did not impress anyone, it would prove that you had wasted your life by not doing it sooner. But that is the fear talking, not the truth. The truth is, an hour spent doing what your soul loves is not a small thing. It is not a consolation prize. It is the thing itself." The man started painting the next week. He was not talented in the way the world rewards talent. His paintings were simple. They would never hang in galleries. But when he painted, the heaviness lifted. When he painted, he was present in a way he had not been present in decades. When he painted, he was, for the first time in a very long time, himself. He died 4 years later, and the people who sat with him at the end said that he was one of the most at-peace people they had ever witnessed in those final weeks. Not because everything was resolved, not because every old wound had healed, but because in those last 4 years he had finally stopped performing a life and started living one. Now I want to say something important. The elders never told this teaching to cause pain. They were not in the business of making people feel they had failed. They were in the business of waking people up, gently, firmly, the way you wake someone who has been sleepwalking toward the edge of something. They always said, "The mask can be removed at any age. There is no point at which it is too late to begin living as yourself." I have seen this. I have watched people at 75 make the decision, quietly, without announcement, to stop living for approval and start living from the inside out. And the change in them was visible, not dramatic, not overnight, but visible. The way their eyes changed, the way they moved through a room, the way they spoke, less carefully, more honestly, the way they laughed, more freely without checking first to see if the laughter was appropriate. The elders said, "Even 1 year lived in truth is worth more than 20 lived in performance. Even 1 year, even 6 months, even a season. But this change requires something. It requires the one act of courage that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Not physical courage, not the courage of conflict or confrontation, the quieter courage, the harder courage. The courage to stop looking outward for permission, to stop asking, what do people expect of me? What will they think? What do I owe them? What do I have to maintain? And to start asking instead, honestly, gently, without judgment of your own past, what does my soul actually want? What did I come here to express? What have I been afraid to be? These are not comfortable questions. The elders never said they were comfortable. They said they were necessary. They said that the discomfort of asking them is far smaller than the discomfort of arriving at the end of a life without ever having asked them at all. One of the things the elders said that has stayed with me longer than almost anything else is this. Most people are waiting for permission that will never come. They are waiting for someone, a parent, a partner, a community, a culture, to say, "It is okay. You can be yourself now. You do not have to keep performing. You are allowed to want what you actually want. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to be strange or soft or ambitious in ways that make no sense to anyone else. You are allowed to change." But the elders said, that permission will not come from outside. It cannot, because the people around you are also performing. They are also wearing masks. They are also waiting for permission. And when they see someone take off their mask, when they see someone choose their own life over the expected one, it unsettles them, not because they are bad people, but because it reminds them of their own unlived life, and that reminder is uncomfortable, And sometimes people respond to discomfort with disapproval. Do not wait for their approval. You will be waiting forever. The permission has to come from inside, and it is available right now, today, this moment. You do not have to make a dramatic announcement. You do not have to burn down the life you have built. The elders were not asking for that. They were asking for something much simpler and much harder. They were asking you to become, slowly and steadily, more honest. Honest about what you love. Honest about what you are tired of. Honest about what you have been carrying that was never yours to carry. Honest about the gifts you have been hoarding out of fear, and the parts of yourself you have been hiding out of shame. Not all at once, not in a single conversation, but over time, with patience. With the same patience you would offer to a child who was learning to walk for the first time. Because in a real sense, that is what this is. It is learning to walk in your own life for the first time. And it will feel unsteady at first, and it will feel strange. And some people will not understand it, and some relationships will shift, and there will be moments where you wonder if this is worth it. But the elders always said, keep going, because on the other side of that discomfort is something you may not even have a word for yet. Something that feels finally like home. If these words have touched something in your heart, I want you to know that there is a place where this teaching goes deeper. In the last teachings, I have gathered some of the most important lessons I know about solitude, about relationships, about inner peace, and about what truly matters as the years pass. And along with it, you will receive a special teaching, completely free, called The Secrets of the First Hour. It is about the silent habits that many elders considered sacred for beginning the day, the small rituals that set the tone for everything that follows. The link is in the first comment, whenever you are ready. The elder I learned this from, the one who taught me most of what I'm sharing with you now, always ended this teaching the same way. Not with an answer, not with a solution, not with a list of things to do differently starting tomorrow. He ended it with a question. He believed that the right question, asked at the right moment, does more for a person than 100 instructions ever could. He believed that a question, if it is honest enough, plants something in the listener that keeps growing long after the conversation is over, long after the teacher is gone. He used to sit very still. He would wait until the room was quiet, not just quiet on the outside, but quiet in the way a room gets when everyone in it is actually present, when the thinking has softened for a moment and something deeper is listening. And then he would ask, if no one were watching. If no one had ever told you what you were supposed to want, if you had no reputation left to protect, no expectations left to meet, no one left to disappoint, no performance left to maintain, what would you do with the days you have remaining? Not what would make sense, not what would be responsible, not what would be impressive or practical or explainable. What would you do? He never answered it for anyone. He said the answer lives in each person, in a place that no elder and no teaching can reach on their behalf. He said it is in the same place the forgotten self has been waiting, patiently, all these years. He would just let the question sit there, in the air between us, like smoke rising from a fire, present but formless, everywhere and nowhere, and now I leave it with you. Take your time with it. There is no rush. It does not need to be answered out loud. It does not need to be announced or explained or justified to anyone, but it deserves to be answered honestly, in the privacy of your own heart, in the quiet moments between one day and the next, because the elders believed, and I believe, that the answer is already there. It has always been there. It was never lost. It was only waiting for you to be still enough to hear it.